Hey everyone, welcome to Real Talk NFT podcast. This is actually the first recording ever of my podcast. I have a special guest on for you today, Martin Hyu. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe Chu. I am the host of Real Talk NFT podcast, where we talk all things NFT, breaking news, interview project founders, and all interesting things on Web3. And Martin has a long resume, which I will probably read off and have him introduce himself. But Martin, wow, we connected on social media. You put a tweet out there that was kind of like I wouldn't say a Tinder profile dating call, but you're like, hey, anyone with a Moonbirds, Five Fish Club, or V Friends, let's connect. And I'm like, hey, that's me. I have two of those. So that was super, super cool. And we actually connect offline, and so glad that you could be here. But for those of you who don't know you, you wear many hats. So you are the founder of Mars Media, a marketing agency. You're starting an NFT Speakeasy in Montreal, Canada, called Maya Club. You're a restaurateur. You open a snack bar. Is it a restaurant or a snack bar in Montreal already?
Yeah, so it's a Japanese snack bar.
It's Japanese, and I can't pronounce it correctly. So can you help me pronounce it?
Yeah, it's basically we kept the French name of the previous place, which was a souvenir shop. So basically, it's called Fleurs Cadeaux, which translates into flowers and gifts.
Flowers and gifts. Okay. Thankfully, you pronounced it because I would completely butchered it. Not only that, you have a YouTube channel. You have another marketing agency, I think, an influencer agency with over 300,000 followers on Instagram. And you also have a podcast yourself that talks all things Web3. So yeah, I did just a brief overview. But how about you tell us about, the audience about yourself? How did you get into NFTs? How did you wear so many hats? So just kind of tell us about yourself and how you got into NFTs.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me. Thanks for the intro. I appreciate it. And I'm humbled to be the first guest on the show. So cheers for that. And of course, I'll kick things off with like little spiel about myself, about how I got into marketing in the first place. So I studied graphic design in school, was always like kind of like an artistic mind. I loved drawing, anything art, like photography. And being in graphic design school, I realized that I learned way better by doing it myself. So what happened is that on the side, I think this was about like 9 years ago, I was already doing photography and everything. And one of my older brothers, like 10 years older than me, so he knew all these business owners that already had businesses and mostly like restaurants and bars. And at that time, I don't know if you remember this, if it was the same thing where you live, maybe you live in the States or...
Yeah, I live near San Francisco, yes.
Okay, so probably the same, but you guys were a bit more advanced. But here in Montreal, Canada, like there weren't a lot of businesses that actually were on Facebook or Instagram to promote their business. It wasn't like standard practice for a restaurant to be on Facebook and posting every day. People thought that this was more for, making some sort of profile and adding friends and just like keeping in touch with each other. So by then I was already deeply into marketing by reading books from, obviously Tim Ferriss, Gary Vee. And I just saw this kind of trend coming up, which was, and most of all, like it was a white space that I could fill up, which was to create content for these small businesses. So I started doing photography and videography for these places. And at first I did it for free. So, it was just like, hey, I'll do a couple of photos for you and, I'll get a meal for free here and there. And eventually, like with any business, if you do a great job, people start talking about it. And it came to the point that, I couldn't do it for free anymore because so many people were asking. So I started charging, and all the meanwhile, I was still in school. So I did these two things in parallel, in tandem, if you will. And eventually I had to decide to either, go into business full time or continue the studies. So I decided to drop out of school and focus wholly on my marketing agency. And from there, I grew the business. Now it's been 8 years now that the business is running, and we have 5 people on the team. And we're doing, it's still a niche boutique kind of marketing agency, but we're working with hotels, restaurants, bars, and clubs. And that's how I got into the whole ecosystem of hospitality, if you will. And my first place that I opened, which was a Japanese snack bar you couldn't pronounce the name of, That kind of came very like in a serendipitous kind of way, where my client, where we already work with at the marketing agency for a couple of his accounts, he said, hey, I'm opening this new spot and I know that you're obviously going to do marketing for it, so you want to invest in it. And so that's how I guess the whole hospitality side of me came together, and how I became a restaurant owner as well. And then, fast forward to maybe like 2 years ago, when the pandemic first hit, I guess that's when each and every one of us had more time on their hands. Mm-hmm. And I was still consuming a lot of that content from Gary Vee, and he was the first person to really talk about NFTs in a more global scale, and actually try to explain it. Because before that, I have only heard about it, but I wasn't too sure. For me, it was like more pictures of like these pixelated characters, and I was like, what is that about? And you just thought about its surface layer. You didn't see the real utility behind NFTs. And when he first started talking about it, I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. Let me dive into this, and let me actually like try to see what he's up to with his project, because he was launching his own NFT collection, VeeFriends. And as a consumer of his content for like almost 10 years, I was like, this is the only way for me to give back to him in some way. So let me get his NFT. Let me try to buy some Ethereum and mint the NFT. And it was quite a challenge, should I say, because back here it wasn't in Canada, it wasn't that easy to get Ethereum. If you wanted to buy something like something on Coinbase, here the banks actually flagged Coinbase as like a cryptocurrency kind of how should I call it, like an exchange. Mm-hmm. So they didn't like any transaction go through. So I need to figure out to use Binance, but peer to peer. And it was just a whole process of onboarding. And then over the years, VeeFriends, and then I got into Proof Collective, and got into Moonbirds, and here we are today. And I guess like I've made it my full-time thing almost.
Yeah, I'm quite curious, because I've dived down that rabbit hole, same as you, how many collections we have that are similar, because I kind of went down that same path with VeeFriends. And how we connected was I saw your podcast with Fly Fish Club. And for the listeners who don't know, Fly Fish Club is another Gary Vee venture where he's the chair, and it's the NFT only, I'm sorry, not NFT only, but it's a NFT token gated dining experience that they just broke ground on. So that was something that maybe sparked your creativity to start your own NFT. And tell us about that. So you went from being a collector, now owning a agency, a creative agency, to a restaurateur, to now you want to kind of bridge the two. So tell us about how that decision came about, and I'll probably have a bunch more questions about that.
Yeah, obviously you nailed it. You put the nail on the head. I think Fly Fish Club really gave a lot of us the inspiration to start our own things, because prior to Fly Fish Club, I think we didn't see the real world utility of NFTs. I think it was one of the first projects where I was like, wow, okay, this can be implemented into an everyday life kind of thing. And once I saw that what they did with Fly Fish, I was like, well, there's no reason why we couldn't implement that with our next project. It just makes sense, because at the end of the day, what I thought about was that regardless of how many times you go to a restaurant or how many times you go to a hotel, you don't necessarily own anything of that place. You're just considered like a valuable customer, and you'll be treated differently. Now, what I liked about the concept of NFTs is that you might not be a shareholder per se, but you still have a vested interest in the place performing well, because you do hold an asset that gives you access to that private members club, or whichever it will be in the future. Maybe it won't be like, because obviously not every restaurant is going to be a private members club, but to own a token that is associated with the brand, I think aligns a lot of incentives there. And I did see a parallel between the hospitality side of myself, where I love connecting with people, I love going out, I love having these peak experiences by eating great food and drinking great cocktails. I saw the potential of pairing that with everything that was technology and marketing, because to me, NFTs is not only a tool for bettering our lives in many different facets, whether it's like a proof of ownership or anything more than that, but it's also the idea that you can you can be part of a tribe in a sense, and you can communicate what you're about without necessarily like doing 10,000 posts about it. Like the thing that really clicked in my head is when I went to these conferences like NFT NYC or VCon, and I saw a group of thousands of people all being together and all sharing a similar interest in a way. We didn't have to screen anyone. We just felt like, hey, if you're here in some way, I'm going to connect with you. And it's the same thing. We're in Flyfish Club, and in some capacity, there's already a filtering that happened that we know that, maybe we won't agree with 100% of the things that we talk about, but in some ways we'll have a lot of connecting tissue already just by being part of that club. So to me, NFTs are a powerful marketing tool that allows for better communication and better community building, which ties into the restaurant side of things.
Absolutely. I already felt some synergy with a lot of individuals that I met in Web3 without even seeing their face, maybe just the avatar. And then when you finally see the face, it's just, absolutely just another layer of just curiosity of what other interests that we might have in common. But immediately, like you said, there's a connection already. And I find that really, really as a positive in NFT space, where I would not connect with an individual across the globe like you are in Montreal right now, and I'm in San Francisco. I would have never met you had it not 100%. Been for Web3. So that's something that I really like. I really enjoy. That's kind of my models in life, is to just really live life meaningfully through experiences, specifically experiences with other people. And with you creating a speakeasy, that's another, I wouldn't say Web2, it's a physical presence for people to connect. And you mentioned a lot of the friction of onboarding. So how are you seeing that, or how are you fixing that if you are with the launch of your restaurant? I'm sorry, your speakeasy. Tell us details about that. How's it going? Are you in the beginning stages? Is it coming 2023? Anything that you want to tell us, listeners?
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, you being in the space, you understand how complicated all these platforms are. Like Discord is a hell to deal with. Like setting up a wallet and buying ETH and like sending ETH to the wallet and minting stuff. I mean, for people that have been in the space for like a year or 2 years, it seems very common and like simple in a sense, but it's really not. If I talk to, even my brother that is very close to me, but he never got into NFTs, you still see a lot of pushback against that, because, it's like in their heads, they're trying to wrap their head around why is that thing so complicated, and how, what does it even mean that I get Ethereum on a digital wallet that, for some reason is stored on the blockchain. So there's a lot of things that we still need to, iron out the details and make it easier for people to digest, the mainstream society to digest. And one of those things is actually making it easier for the people to be able to buy NFTs. Now, one of the core aspects of minting that we focused on with Maya, our members club. So basically, like we will have a speakeasy location, but at the end of the day, it is a members club. So it is not just the speakeasy itself. Like members will have access to like a wide variety of experiences all over the world. But you're right. The most important aspect of it too, a big aspect of it, is that we're opening a speakeasy that will only be members only. So coming back to my point about minting, the way that we want to onboard a lot of people is to make the minting as simple as possible. So obviously, like minted with credit card, we're using CrossMint to do that, and basically the first step of our sale, which we call the pre-sale, we're actually reaching out to local people in Montreal, the people we've gotten to know in the hospitality industry for the past 6-7 years. We're reaching out to them, and we are offering them to get on board and to be the first to mint the NFTs. And for them, at the end of the day, like right now, it's going very well, because we just have to sell them the concept of making a members club in Montreal. There's not any members club yet in Montreal, so that is already a novel thing. Now, the NFT aspect is another novel thing that a lot of people don't understand, but they do see the appeal of being, the first NFT speakeasy in Canada or Montreal, and so on that sense, it's been manageable. Now, will it be easier in the future? I certainly hope so. but it does help a lot to have the option of minting with credit card. So that's how we're approaching it.
Good. That's credit cards. Good to hear, because onboarding through crypto, even with the peg of crypto, it fluctuates massively. They can be promised a price in crypto, right? And then something happens like last week, which no one could have been prepared for, and their membership costs might differ from someone else getting in a week later, and that could cause like disgruntled, consumers. So there's a spectrum of just in crypto. It doesn't really it's hard to grasp onboarding through crypto because it's so volatile. So to hear you do credit card and probably maybe one day exit, through credit card would be a great platform for your users. Can you educate the listeners about the speakeasy industry? And the reason I bring this up is because out of nowhere, just 2 days ago, I'm a big traveler, so I followed the blog, the Points Guy, and then right on the front page, it was like Soho House and how they're looking for profitability for the first time in 27 years. And how it just struck me. I'm like, wow, I'm interviewing you. I'm also interviewing the Fly Fresh Club founders tomorrow also. And it's cool that I have this question to pose to you first. Is that native to maybe Soho House because they were trying to grow so fast? They haven't hit profitability, and maybe it's not native to just small restaurateurs. Can you tell us about the industry? Is it something that is does NFT limit the market, or is it expand it? Yeah, tell us about your thoughts on that.
I think it expands it in a lot of ways because, the traditional members club, or I think, we should always disassociate like speakeasy and members club, like see the difference, because a lot of people call themselves a speakeasy and they might start out as a speakeasy, but eventually they open up to the whole public, which means they're not really a speakeasy anymore. Right. But yeah, like in Montreal, we've had so many of these concepts where, it starts out as a speakeasy, and then eventually, the pressure to obviously like pay the staff and make rent and actually be profitable in some ways pushes you to open it up to the whole public. So I think NFTs in a way, they do reinforce that aspect of exclusivity, members club, and they allow true members club to thrive in the long term, because now it's not just, I'm paying a yearly fee, and then the moment I stop paying, I'm not a member anymore. It's an asset that I buy once, I mint it, or I grab it on the secondary market, or I rent it. We also have a renting mechanism, but it allows for more, I guess, for more ways of financing the business in a sense, because obviously we're not waiting on like secondary sales to finance it, but like the renting mechanism will be an extra added profit that we can use towards like hosting these IRL events. Secondary sales, same thing. We're not like depending on it, but it's a nice thing to have as a bonus. Now, the primary sales, what I do like about them is that it's a way for us to pull the liquidity forward so that we can get the best staff that we need. A lot of times I think in this industry, what's most challenging is not necessarily the, it's not necessarily like coming up with a cool concept or what, like it's getting the right people to implement that vision and to keep them for a long term. Now, is it possible to do it without NFTs? Sure, it's definitely possible. But I think with NFTs, it's just going to create that much more solid foundation community that's going to allow you to thrive in the long term. Now, I'm not like totally, sure about the business model of Soho House, but it seems like they have done pretty well at expanding. Perhaps the reason why they weren't profitable, and this is just my speculation, is maybe they reinvested everything that they've gotten as profit to open up new places and to grow the network of clubs that they have. But it's definitely, a members club that is top of mind for a lot of people.
Got it. It's so cool to hear that you're going to have the renting mechanism. I know Fly Fish Club calls it leasing mechanism. And is there precedence there? Because I'm not so familiar with the restaurant industry or bar industry for that. I'm more of a sports fanatic. So there's season ticket holders, my friends that own them, and I could buy them on a secondary market. And that's something that is widely utilized. Every single day I would pay a premium for that. But is there precedence? I'm not sure if Soho House has ever done it in the Web2 space where in the restaurant world where, people rent out or lease out their members only benefits?
I mean, not that I know of, and particularly like the reason why we decided and we thought it was such a great idea from Fly Fish Club to implement a leasing system, and why we went for that thing as well, is because we don't want to lose all the, how should I say, how can I word this? Like, we don't want to lose the potential profits and revenue that we can get from the tourism that comes to Montreal. So a lot of times, you can have people that come to Montreal. We have for example, Formula One every June that happens in Montreal. That's a huge weekend for anyone in the hospitality businesses, like restaurants and like popular restaurants and bars and clubs can make hundreds of thousands of dollars during this weekend. So obviously for us, like we're not blind to the fact that this is a big driver of business, and we want to actually like open up the door for those things to actually happen inside the members club without necessarily diluting the membership itself. Now, what I like the idea of Fly Fish is that they said they made it rentable for a month. And after thinking about it a few times, it makes a lot of sense, because you don't want like such a high volume of people like rotating inside a members club, so it doesn't even feel like a members club anymore. Right? Like if I go there and every time I go, I just see different faces, I'm not going to feel like I'm really at home. So I like the idea of like making it leasable or, rentable for a month.
Yeah, that's super dynamic. That's something I haven't seen. So it's, now that you mention, F1 coming over to Montreal, there's so many opportunities where, events can happen with that same intimacy, where they can rent it for blocks at a time, but it still feels intimate because it's not open to the public. You have to be, a holder of sorts, and that could drive more business for you guys.
Right.
Tell us. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Can I just add up on that? Like,
yeah.
And also, it's the cool thing about NFTs is it's going to be beneficial to both parties, to us as the speakeasy, but also to the members. Let's say you're a holder of that token and you know that during F1, there's so much demand that people are just willing to pay wild prices for it to get in. Well, guess what? You are also benefiting as a holder. So I think it's just, it just makes sense as a system. And one other thing that we decided to implement that I don't think Fly Fish necessarily did is that we're going to hotel concierges, and we're actually making a special token just for them so that they can rent it to the hotel, like people that are staying in the hotel.
Wow, for their maybe top tier consumers where they want privacy, intimacy,
exactly.
And white glove
Let's
service.
say somebody that stays at the Four Seasons or Ritz Carlton is like, hey, what's the best spots in Montreal I have to hit? They're going to say, oh, there's this bar, there's this speakeasy that's really good. But by the way, there's also like this speakeasy that's an NFT speakeasy. We have the membership and we can rent it out to you. Would you be interested? Like, I think that makes you feel very exclusive as a person staying in the hotel.
Absolutely. Wow. That's super exciting to see how that plays out in the data driven behind that. I'm interested to have that conversation a year from now. When do you plan on, well, besides the opening date, can you tell us about Maya Club, the theme of it? Maya, is it like an Aztecian name? Or tell us about the speakeasy itself.
So I'm one of the founders of the Speakeasy, and obviously I'm the driving force behind it with anything related to marketing and NFTs. But I do have amazing partners that I've gotten to get to know in the past, I would say 7 years, which was one of my first clients. They actually opened a couple of Thai restaurants in Montreal, and they're basically partners, Pascal and Pamika. Pamika is they're both like husband and wife. Pamika is the chef, so she's opened, I think, 4 spots now in Montreal where she's the executive chef. Pascal is her husband, but also business partner, so he takes care of everything that's administration and also like day-to-day operations and management a bit. And then I have Ali, which has been their main general manager for all the restaurants that is going to be part of the group with us. And the reason why I was so keen on having them a part of the team is, again, like I said to you, I think if you have a vision but you don't have the people to execute it, that vision amounts to nothing. And the great point about the way that we met and the way that we fostered a relationship over time is that we've always had the same kind of goal, which was to open one of Montreal's craziest speakeasies or bars that the city would have ever seen. and we have a passion for cocktails. So we are aiming to open like a top 50 cocktail bar in the world. And to do that, obviously, you know, the business has to be designed in a way where we make that a priority. It can't come second, right? Like you can't like open a bar just to open it and then like, you know, hope to hire a great bartender that will make awesome cocktails. No, everything that goes into the design, everything that you know, in the building phase, everything has to be done in a way that you are going to reach that goal. Now, how do we do that? Well, we actually we're going to have like our bar stations made by the best bar agency in the world. They're called Behind Bars, and they've made some of the most iconic bars that you can see. And what makes them so special is that they make it modular and they make it custom so that your bar is designed to be ergonomically efficient. Because, you know, as a bartender, you can make a shift of, you know, 7-8 hours, and every single movement matters, especially over a long period of time. It's the difference between you being comfortable at work or you going home and being like, oh man, my elbow hurts, or like I've made too many steps, I'm tired. Or also the idea of like pre-batching your cocktails in a way that makes it the most efficient for you to serve your customers. Now there's like a whole new trend that the best cocktails are not necessarily the cocktails that have like tons of sparkles and glitter on it and like garnishes. It's about the simplest cocktail, but that just tastes fantastic when you drink it. It looks like it was made in 2 minutes, but all the work was actually done prior to that. So we're thinking about all that and doing our prep rooms and inside the design. But to come back to your question, and sorry for the segue, what is Maya? So Maya is it is Thai inspired. The word Maya comes from Thai phonetic. Maya means illusion, basically. And the reason why we wanted to go with that name is we felt like, you know, a lot of times when you go out or when you go into different social environments, you often put on, you know, maybe not necessarily, I don't see it as a bad thing, but we all put on a mask in some way. We have the mask of like the person that's going to work, the mask of the person that's going out to socialize. And in a way, to me, like a place where a speakeasy where you enter and you don't know what to expect, we always like the name Maya that alluded to illusion. And that's how the name came together. And the NFTs themselves are masks of Thai gods, because in Thai culture, like there's a lot of like these, should I say, like almost like mythologies or like deities that came from these religions that have these mythical figures that represent power, that represent health, wealth, love in Thai, and we kind of incorporated that Thai aspect to everything that was the speakeasy itself. Now it is Thai inspired, but you know it won't be tacky. Like you won't have like Thai walls inside the speakeasy and whatnot, and you know it's not going to be obvious references. The bar itself is going to look very modern and clean, and I think the NFTs are the only real place that we have that Thai reference, and also the food, obviously, that's going to be served there. So we're planning on having elevated Thai cuisine. So obviously, it's not going to be like a huge portion of pad Thai or like these very filling soups or whatnot. It's going to be small finger bites, but done very eloquently.
Nice. Yeah. People can go on your Instagram and know that it's going to be sleek, modern, and amazing just from the look of what you've done with your marketing agency and the look and feel of it. You already got, you know, my wife, she's Cambodian. We just got married, and they draw a lot from the Thai culture. Like the god is, like you mentioned, the god and everything. I just did a wedding ceremony and I had to dress up with all of that. So that's something that draws really close to me. And she's actually from Massachusetts, which is quite close to Montreal. I did not know that. So we'll definitely have to make a trip up there soon.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to end things with two questions, seeing as how this is an NFT podcast. How did you go about building? Well, you definitely didn't build your own blockchain. You know, what are you built off of? Which network did you select? And how did you go from, you know, social media marketing agency all the way to, you know, hey, I'm going to build a NFT? You know, was it very easy? Was it hard? Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, if you look at it from a short-term perspective, and you just compared what I knew 3 years ago to what I know now, yeah, it might seem hard. I'm not saying it's going to be done in like 2 days. This is things that like over and over again, you experiment and you learn. And I'm a big believer in learning. And that's probably one of the things that got me into entrepreneurship in the first place. But, I think this is one of the best places, and should I say spaces, to learn about this stuff. Like I feel like on Twitter, every day that you open the app, there's spaces that are happening 24/7 about new things that are happening in the space. What is educational content that is being released, and what I've seen in the space and what I like about it is that everyone kind of starts at a ground level. And what I mean by that is that I don't feel like anyone is out of reach. Even the people that I thought were, let's say like Gary or Tim Ferriss, all of a sudden it's like an equal playing ground and everybody can kind of connect together.
Or Kevin Rose, I saw you interviewed him, right?
No, not yet. Not Kevin Rose yet.
Ryan Carson.
It's in the works.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I have met him and we've spoken a few times at conferences, but I feel like everything becomes more democratized in a way. And I don't think, coming back to your question, I don't think like it's that hard to achieve a lot in a short period of time and space. I think a lot of people are impatient though, and they might want to cut corners and like try to launch a collection right away and do, and feel like they're going to miss out if they don't do it right now. But the good thing about the bear market is that we have time to build, right? I felt like during the bull market, like everyone felt like I need to launch my project right now. Yeah. It's going to be too late. And, and now it feels like, okay, let's take our time. Let's build it up in a good way, put the foundation down, and actually like reach out to people one-on-one. I think that's the best advice I can give, is actually engage with people, like actually put comments on people's posts and share your thoughts, reach out to people on DMs, participate in spaces, be on Discord servers and actually talk to people. It's not easy, but it definitely like gives a lot of returns.
That's awesome. Yeah, it definitely seems like you have a very thoughtful process to this. You've been in the space for so long, and looking to bridge the gap between what you've done already. You have experience in the restaurant world with Web3. It definitely seems like you put a lot of thought into it and what it's going to be. So I'm super excited to see how that vision unfolds, as you talk a lot about vision. Last question for you before we wrap things up. You wear so many hats. How do you manage it all? Give us a day, a look at your life, just like a sneak peek of how you organize everything.
Oh wait, I'm wearing my Moonbird hat.
Okay.
So how do I organize my day now? It is a bit hectic, but I've gotten into a routine. So I try to, it's easier to describe the routine. So basically I try to get to bed before 12, wake up somewhere around like 7:30. I do a 20-minute meditation. That means like no devices, nothing, about like 30 minutes after I wake up. So I brush my teeth, I do some meditation. And afterwards I go right away. I go outside to get some sunlight, some fresh air. And then I start my day probably like an hour and a half in. And that's when I have my first coffee usually. And then from there, I probably catch up with Discord, Twitter, and then I plan and I book my day in terms of podcast sessions. So I'm going to reach out to people that I find are interesting to have onto the podcast. All the meanwhile, obviously, there's other stuff happening with my marketing agency as well. So I have to juggle that in some sense. But I'm trying to basically allocate, let's say for NFTs and crypto, I'm allocating about like 5 to 6 hours a day. Marketing agency, I would say about 3 to 4 hours, and that will include calls. And I've just gotten better at trying to say no to useless calls. Meaning, if we can do something in a is that the right word? Like asynchronous way. So like not synchronized, but like out of sync, but that somebody sends me something and then I respond to them on my own time. Loom has been incredibly amazing for this. people that don't know about this app, it's basically an app that allows you to record your screen and share comments about a certain thing. So for us at the marketing agency, if we're working on a website design or we're working on a maquette for a concept, it's just super useful to like record our screen, walk through a PDF, do our presentation, put our comments, and then the other person can like review it and put comments on timestamps. So just finding tools that way to make it so that we don't always have to catch up in real time.
Yeah. Wow. It seems like you have a thoughtful process to your day. You spend a lot of time in the crypto and the Web3 space, and it seems like it's working for you. So that's really good. You have a really calm demeanor about you. I listen to your podcast, and you have really entertaining guests on as well. So I'm super excited. Yes.
Can I ask you how you manage it? Because you've been in the space for a while too. And how do you do, should I say, like, how do you not get overwhelmed with all this stuff that's happening?
I think the short answer is I'm still overwhelmed, and we're learning as we go, because there's so many movements with, number one, crypto, and then NFTs is, in the verge and in the front end of that. So it's moving lightning speeds, and there's so much to discuss, so much to talk about. And I'm excited about that, because I haven't been excited about those things back then when I was working at a traditional Web2 job for a long time. So I just try to do as much as I can and not get burnt out, which was tougher in 2021. A lot easier now that, like as you mentioned, we're in a bear market, because a lot of the speculation is gone, and the true builders, the true even collectors and adopters are here to stay. So we're having more in-depth conversations about how we would like to change, the world of this technology, and it's happening. Listening to your podcast and listening to, and speaking with founders and projects, it's all exciting to see how we're taking slow, methodical steps. So it's actually slowed down a bit now, although it is still, a lot to take in. And really, I organize my time just creating and documenting the space. So YouTube is my biggest platform. So majority of my time personally is around YouTube. So where you spend 6 to 7 hours on crypto and Web3 and NFTs, I spend on YouTube. And then, the rest, now we're looking to launch, we have launched our podcast, and really just doing our best job to document the space out there. So I may have an easier job than you, I think, is the answer. I'm not opening up an NFT restaurant. I'm not running a social.
I don't think so, because YouTube is quite a grind. So I really respect it.
Yes. Yeah. So we're doing the best that we can. I'm excited to build out, as much education we can for adopters, project founders, to really connect them, because this is the space to do it. We want to make sure that this space is progress. It will progress. We already know that. We already know that it's going to be in every facet of our life. But just giving the average person the opportunity to do so is where I want to shine, because that's what I am. I'm not that crazy in any way. I'm not a Silicon Valley hedge fund investor. And I really believe in Web3's ethos, which is, Web 1 was read only, Web 2 is read and write, and Web 3 is read, write, and own, right? And we mentioned this quite a few times, not only for project founders, but it can be beneficial, incentivized for consumers on the opposite side, for the first time in history, where we have, sort of a voice in, not just as a participant, but we can have the upside of the asset itself. And that's really what I believe people listening to this podcast and to your podcast should really endeavor to do, which is to tap into your creative side. Go out there and start an NFT, or maybe even artwork, right? And find some way to tie it in to the technology, because that's really going to break the traditional modes of what we've seen in Web 2, where YouTube owns everything, or Apple Podcasts owns everything. And we can talk forever, right, Martin, of how things would change in the future with micropayments, and just I'm excited to see how this will all unfold. So I'm doing my best to stay abreast, and I'm treading water is the answer to the question. I think we're all trading. Yeah,
I'd love to add like one point on top of this, if I may.
Yes.
Which is that, to your question earlier, like how do you keep up with stuff, and how do you deal with everything that's happening, and how do you wear so many hats? I think the answer is just time, right? Like, again, the patience in the space needs to be talked about more. And honestly, also like the time it takes to build an audience. Now, you mentioned at the beginning that, yeah, I have founded like, one of the Instagram pages that I have is Influencer Agency that we grew to 300,000 followers and more. And that was probably a 3.5 year grind, right? Posting every day for like 4 times a day. So it takes time to build community. And I think in the space, people will start to realize that you don't need to have 100,000 followers anymore. You don't need to have 1 million followers anymore. Let's have 1,000 followers that really believe in you and are ready to pay for what you're building and actually like invest in what you're doing because they really like, they see your vision and they align with it. And I think that was like one of the things that made me like really fall in love with NFTs and wanting to implement that inside our new project, the Maya Speakeasy, Maya Members Club, which is that, I don't need a community of 30,000 people. I need a community of 2,000 people that really love that place and are going to talk about it and are going to be real advocates. Because if 2,000 people each person like talks to 5 person or 10 people, and one of those people come back to the club and the same process happens over and over again, you get to build something huge. And it comes back to what Kevin Kelly was saying about your 1,000 true fans, which now more than ever holds true.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard that in your last podcast with Michael
Stelzner.
Michael Stelzner. He said, a lot of it's just vanity marketing, right? It doesn't translate to dollars. Where Web3, maybe we can more intimately, hone in on those 1,000 loyal fans and just really have benefits for both sides, for us as, whether it be business owners and on the opposite side of the audience members and consumers. So absolutely, I would love to see that flip happen versus what we have today, which I believe is we're being driven by the wrong metrics, right? So I would like to see that change, that narrative change a little bit instead of, just going for likes. And I think what Instagram and Facebook, they did away with like likes or dislikes or whatnot. Like it's very interesting Web 2, and hopefully we could fix a lot of those issues in Web 3.
100%.
Cool. Well, Martin, I'm so excited for your restaurant launch your speakeasy launch. Has it minted already, or is there a date to be announced for that?
So now the pre-sale is happening. So we're reaching out to friends and family that are local in Montreal and then also like in the NFT Web3 space. But then the public launch will happen early January. So we'll send out the pre-mints and, reaching out to communities late December. So we're expecting an allow list launch, early January. So first week or second week of January. Right now, it's really just a pre-sale to allow the friends and families and people that are close to us to get in first. The people that have supported us through like the years to have a way in before everyone else.
Awesome. I'll put the links down below on the show notes. Anyone in Montreal and Canada that have interest in NFTs and Speakeasy, definitely check out Martin's and also his marketing agency. Appreciate your time, Martin. We must catch up again after you roll out your Speakeasy and get you back on to talk all things NFTs.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. This was really a blast.
Thank you, Martin.
See you.